Great. All right, great. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for the cooking demo. My name is Bina, and I'm a nutritionist here for the Department for the Aging. Again, just as a reminder, right now, this event is being recorded, and then afterwards, the recording is going to be stopped when you can unmute yourselves. So just to introduce you to some of us who are involved in running this event, we also have Tamar. She's the moderator for the event today. We're both nutritionists for the Department for the Aging. And I also want to give credit to our sponsors. So this event has been brought to you by the ACL Grant Virtual Smart Living Initiative in partnership with the New York City Department for the Aging. And while you're also just some other announcements, after today's event, we also have 2 other cooking demos scheduled for the next 2 months. So in February, on February 16th, at 11 a.m., which is a Wednesday, we're going to be having our next cooking demo, which is Asian tofu stir fry. And then in March, also Wednesday at 11, March 16th, we will be having the recipe will be Mediterranean hummus. That cooking demo is going to be in Spanish. So the link, the meeting ID, the passcodes for our cooking demos are all the same. They're on Wednesdays at 11 and usually the 3rd Wednesday of the month. So you will be receiving a flyer soon with that information. Okay. So before we start off, learning about how to prepare today's recipe, which is curried red lentil soup, the reason why we chose this recipe is because this is a really easy type of dish to make, and you could probably make it in about 35-45 minutes. So if you're looking for, a light, quick dinner, this is a great option. It's also very flavorful. We're going to be using different items to flavor this soup. So we'll be using cumin, curry powder, lemon, and the lemon really adds this pop of freshness to it. And the cumin and the curry powder also add some amazing flavors to it. So it's really tasty and it's also really nutritious. Lentils are a great source of plant protein, and they're a really great source of fiber, which is a really important nutrient that many of us are not getting enough of. It helps to keep us full for longer. It helps to keep us to stay regular, and it could be really helpful for weight management to have more fiber. And also the lentils are low in fat. So basically, something like lentils, a plant protein, it's a great substitute for having meat. These are some of the reasons of why we chose this recipe. So just to start off, before we do any recipe, it's always important for us to wash our hands. So I already washed my hands, so we're going to be ready to start. And again, just as a reminder, you should be able to see both me and my kitchen. So on a second camera, you'll see 2 pots on the stove, and you'll be able to see as I add items to the pot. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is heating up the oil in a soup pot. So this recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. So I'm going to get my tablespoon here, and we have the olive oil here. So I'm going to measure this out into the pot. And if you don't have olive oil, that's okay. You could use canola oil is also a good option. Okay, so I'm going to put in, that's 1 tablespoon. And then we're going to put a second one. All right. Okay. And then we're gonna put it onto like a medium-ish heat. So we're gonna let the oil heat up a little bit. Okay, and then the next thing that we're gonna be doing is adding in the onion. So how much onion are we using in this recipe? You'll want to use like a medium-sized onion, and that's something that we have chopped over here, 1 onion. And then after we add in the onion, we're going to just wait a few moments for the oil to heat up. And then we're going to saute the onion for about 5 minutes until it becomes soft. Just to introduce you to some of the other ingredients we're going to be using, we're going to be adding in some curry powder once the onion is softened. So let me show that to you over here. I have that. Okay, so this is the curry powder, and curry powder is really brings out a lot of flavors in the dishes that you add it to. It does contain different things like turmeric, cumin, black pepper, ginger. Sometimes there are other things added to it, like sometimes they also add cinnamon to it. So this really gives it a lot of flavor. Okay. And the type of lentils that we're going to be using in this recipe are red lentils. So I'm going to show you the package of the red lentils. Here. Okay, this is what it looks like. And red lentils are have a sweetish type of flavor. The thing that's really good about this is that they cook really fast, and you don't need to soak the lentils. So, you know, sometimes beans might require soaking, but these are one of the things that we mentioned before, is that this is a very quick recipe to make. So this is not going to require soaking, and you could add it in directly into the dish that you're preparing. So let's take a moment, and we're going to add in the onion into the pot. So I'm just going to get an oven mitt so that it's important to so that we don't just to not burn the fingers. So take the oven mitt here, and let's add in the onion. And you're going to want to stir that around a little bit. We're going to give that a few minutes. So while we're waiting for that to heat up, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to get the red lentils ready. So what you will want to do with the red lentils is to kind of like go through them to get out any debris that might be in there. And what I did is that once, you know, there might be, you know, you do want to use like red lentils that are in a sealed package. And because sometimes, you know, if things aren't sealed in the cabinets, it might become infested. So you want to make sure that it's sealed properly. And then once you go through it and try to get rid of anything that is not lentil, then you can put it into a strainer and then rinse it in here. So this is 1.5 cups of red lentils that we that are already rinsed off. And the great thing about red lentils is that these, you know, lentils can stay in your pantry for about a year. So you just want to make sure that you are storing it in a dry, dark, cool type of place so that it'll store well. And when you do have, let's say, cooked lentils, they could stay in your freezer for about 3 months. Again, storage is important, so you'll want to store it in like an airtight container to prevent freezer burn, which basically means that it's going to lose the moisture. It might become discolored or shriveled if it's not sealed well, or if it's, you know, stored in the freezer for too long. And if it's in the fridge, it might last for about like 3 days or a week. It might last well in the fridge. So let's continue to check on the onion.
Ina, before you start that, can I ask, can this recipe be frozen? Because you mentioned refrigerated for 2-3 days. So what about frozen?
Yes, so it could be frozen, and you might, in terms of food safety, like things could stay in the freezer and remain safe, but in terms of the quality, the quality might be good for about 3 months. But again, just remember to make sure that you're really packaging it well when you put it into the freezer. So use like an airtight container, or there are certain type of Ziploc bags that are designed to store frozen items in.
Awesome. And then just, sorry, one last question. Can we use here green or brown lentils instead of red lentils? Because we've had participants who have seen both.
Yeah, so you could definitely use the other colored lentils if you want to. The benefit of the red ones is that they do cook fast, and they might have like a little bit more of like a mild sweet flavor, but you could definitely use other lentils if you want to.
Awesome. Thanks, Bina. I'll feed you more questions as they come in.
Sure. So again, you're going to want to stir that around a little bit. Okay. We're going to give that a few more moments, and we're going to start talking about the other items that we're going to be adding in. So I mentioned that once the onion is soft, we're going to add in the curry powder, and we're going to use 2 teaspoons of curry powder, and then we're also going to be putting in 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. So this is the cumin here. We're going to be adding some of this in, and if you want to, it's optional. You could add in some cayenne pepper. Okay, this will make it a little bit spicy, so you can add in a little bit of that. Okay, and then we're gonna just wait 2 minutes after we add that in. So we'll start measuring the curry powder now to add that in. Okay. So this is 1 teaspoon. Okay, let's add in the 2nd teaspoon. Wow, I have to say it really smells amazing here right now. Really good with the onions and the curry powder. And now we're gonna add in the 1/2 teaspoon of the cumin. And then if you want to, this is optional, you can add in a pinch of the cayenne pepper. Okay. I'm just gonna add in a little drop. I do like my food a little bit spicy, so I tend to add more of this, but you should definitely do what tastes better to you. So I'm gonna mix this around.
Ina, while you're mixing, we have a question about making this soup for serving 2 people. Would you say this was a recipe for 6 servings? And if so, how could we make it for 2? Or would you just recommend, freezing what's left because it freezes well?
Yeah, so this recipe, it came out to about 5 servings when I made it, and the serving size was 1 cup. So you could, if you want to, you could just like divide the ingredients in 2, and you don't have to use all of it. You don't have to make all of it, but sometimes, like I personally, like if I'm already standing in the kitchen and we're not using like a whole lot of ingredients, it might just make more sense. If this is a dish that you do like to have, it might just make more sense to cook the the full amount, and then you can save half of it for another day. You could put it into your fridge, or if you want to have it on a different week or something, you could put it into your freezer.
Awesome, thank you. And then we had another question about there's cumin and curry powder, but we see you still adding more cumin. So we just wanted to confirm that there will be cumin in both, but that is one of the things that you say really provides a lot of flavor to this dish.
Right. That's actually what there is the cumin inside of the curry powder, but because this is something very flavorful, we do add more of it to it. That's what the recipe called for. And it's just basically to get more of that flavor in, since the curry powder is a blend of other, seasonings as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Mina.
Sure. Okay, so now that we've waited about a few minutes, we're going to be adding in the next ingredient, which is the tomato paste. So we are going to be adding in a tablespoon of tomato paste. So this is the tomato paste that I'm using. And we have a tablespoon measured out. So we're going to add this in. And then we're also going to add in the garlic. So we're using 1 clove of garlic that's been already chopped. So let's add this in. Okay. So let's put in the tomato paste. Okay. And then let's also add in, we have the garlic here. So this is just 1 clove. And we'll add that in. Okay. Let's get the rest of this in. All right. And then we're going to mix this around. The onions look yellow and the edges look a little brown from all the seasonings that we've added in. And I'm just trying to get the tomato paste evenly distributed throughout the onions and garlic.
I can smell it from here, Bina. It looks like it smells so good.
Yeah, it really does. Especially the onions, the garlic, and the curry powder, everything together. It just really smells amazing. Okay, so we are going to wait a moment, and then the next thing that we're going to do is stir in the water and the lentils. So the amount of water that we're going to be using is 6 cups. And I do have water that's already boiled over here in the electric kettle. So we're going to start measuring out 6 cups of this. And then this recipe has 1.5 cups of the lentils. So that's already been checked and rinsed. And we're going to also add that in directly. But we're going to first add in the water. Okay, so let's add this in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Okay.
Bina, could one person use stock instead of water here?
Yeah, sure. I actually have seen similar recipes using chicken stock, or broth. So you could definitely use that if you want to get more flavor in as well. You just might want to choose something low in sodium, because sometimes like the broth that you buy from the store or the stock, they could be a little high in sodium. So if that's something you're concerned about, then you could choose lower sodium options.
Good idea. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to mix this around. All right. And now we are ready to add in the lentils. Okay. So let's add these in. Okay. mix that around a bit as well. Okay, I love this like orange color, like from the tomato paste and also from the red lentils. It looks really good. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to bring this up to a boil. So, and then once it starts to bubble, we're gonna bring it down to a simmer. So let's give that a few moments. I'm raising the temperature a little bit. Okay.
While you have a second, Bina, would you mind just repeating the measurements for the spices, like the garlic and the dried spices that you used?
Sure. So
And maybe, sorry, some alternatives to cumin and curry.
okay, sure. So here, in terms of the amount of garlic that we used, I just took 1 clove of garlic. So this is what a clove might look like over here. So this is like from the actual head, but this is 1 clove. So I peeled it and then I cut it into small pieces, and that's the amount that we added in. And then in terms of the curry powder, we put in 2 teaspoons of this. And for the cumin, we put in half a teaspoon of this. So in terms of alternatives, you know, if let's say if you didn't want to, you don't necessarily like everything in the curry powder, you could try using some of the ingredients that are in here, but using them individually. So if you like using turmeric or ginger, coriander, those are some other things that this contains. And then as we saw before, the cayenne pepper, this is also something that you can add in.
Thanks, Bina. And then we have a few questions coming in about the recipe. I'm not going to make you repeat everything all over again. So how can we share this recipe and the link with our participants?
Sure. So the same way that the participants received the flyer for this cooking demo, you will also be receiving a recipe card, including all of the ingredients, the materials needed, as well as the step-by-step instructions and nutrition information on this recipe. So that information is going to be distributed to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Bina.
Sure. Okay, great. So let's see. So we're going to basically wait until that starts to bubble, and then we're going to bring the temperature down. And then the last thing that we're going to be adding in is the lemon juice. So what the recipe calls for about 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I basically used half of a lemon and then took the juice of that, and that came out to about 2 tablespoons. So that's how much we're going to be adding, and we want to add that in at the very end so that you know, the flavor is you know, something that we could really taste. Okay. And then once you do cook this recipe and you let's say if you have leftovers of it, you could keep it in your fridge, use it for a few days. And if you notice that over time in the fridge, the recipe does become, the soup becomes thick, you can always like add some water to thin it out. So what other questions do participants have while we're waiting for the soup to come to a boil?
Just a few more questions about the amount of tomato paste you used. But again, we will be sending the recipes out, so you'll have the whole list of ingredients accessible to you after this. But if you want to repeat that.
Yeah, sure. That was a tablespoon that we used of the tomato paste.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure. Great. So let's see.
And you'd say you simmered it for about 20 minutes?
So that is a good question. The recipe says to simmer it for about that amount of time, like 15-20 minutes. When I made this recipe before, I actually prefer to have it simmer for longer. I would say even like about 40 minutes, just because you know, the more time I gave it, the thicker it looked. So I prefer to give it more time.
Thanks, Bina. As a reminder for anyone else that has any questions, please type them into the chat. We have some comments that this sounds like dal. Would you agree?
Yes. So this is, you know, an Indian inspired dish, and this is basically like dal. Dal is a lentil based type of dish in the Indian cuisine. So this is basically the same idea.
We have PSS King Tower Senior Center is cooking live with us. That's awesome. And then we have another question. What happens if we boil the lentils for too long and they get too soft? Is that something that you think would affect, you know, would change the texture or the flavor?
So that is a good question. I'm just lowering this as we're speaking because I see that it's coming to a bubble. So hold on one second. You see that it was boiling, so now I lowered it to a simmer. Okay. So we just lowered the temperature, and when we use the term simmer, that's like slightly below boiling. So we're gonna let it simmer for some time. In response to the question, Tamar, what was the question that you had just brought up?
There was a question, if we boil them for too long,
Right.
they get too soft.
Yeah, so if they are, you know, boiled for too long, they will become like very soft. And that might be something that people like to have like a puree form of something. It might be like more of a mush. So if you like that, then you could definitely give it more time. But if you prefer for it to not be as mushy, then you might not want to like overcook it in that sense. Specifically with these red lentils, you know, the way that it, you know, these are split lentils, and they have the outer coat, the outer shell removed. So these cook much faster than other lentils would. Like if you bought whole brown lentils, those would take longer to cook. So something like the brown lentils that aren't split, those might be better to add into like a salad or to add to rice, but something like this might work better for a soup or a stew because they cook faster and they, you know, become more of like a, you know, one solid type of thing.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds like maybe if we have some chewing or swallowing difficulties, the red lentils might be a little bit easier for us.
Right.
We have a shout out to Shore Hill, who's cooking with us as well. That's awesome.
Great. We always love to hear when our senior centers are cooking along with us. You know, it's great because I know that on right here, you're trying the recipes and you're going to be able to taste it. So it's really great when we hear that you're cooking along with us.
Yeah, if anyone else is, please type it into the chat. We'd love to give you a shout out.
Yeah.
We have a few more questions. So would you suggest maybe adding less water so we could make it into like a sauce so we could eat it with like cauliflower or riced cauliflower or rice? Would that be something that you would recommend?
So the thing is that you might want to test it out yourself to see how it comes out, because this recipe as it is might be already thick anyways. So the water might be necessary. You know, different brands of lentils might have smaller or larger ones. For example, I have 2 packages of lentils here. So this is the package that was primarily used in this recipe, and these lentils were larger. And then I also happen to have had another package of red lentils in my house, and these lentils are a lot smaller. So those are some things you might want to consider. If it's something that is already smaller, that might already come out, might be easier to cook and might become more of that like mush, as opposed to having it like cook and like being able to see the individual lentils. So I would say test it out and try and see how it comes out, and you know, you'll be able to best judge what it would be useful for.
Okay, thanks, Bina. And then we had another question. Would you consider this like a stew, a soup, or a side? It kind of sounds like it could be all three, right?
Yeah, so this is more of a soup, but maybe if it was cooked for longer, there would be more water evaporating and it might become even thicker. So that could turn into a stew. So there's really a lot of like flexibility in terms of how you prepare it. That could impact how you might serve it. But this the ingredients listed here and the instructions, it's intended for this particular recipe to turn into a soup.
Awesome, thanks. And then we had a question about the lemon juice. While it's simmering, is the lemon juice in it already, or you didn't add the lemon juice yet?
Right, great question. So we did not add the lemon juice in yet. We want to save that to be the very last thing, so that the flavor of the lemon is most potent. If we added in earlier, then we might not really experience the lemon as strongly. So we're going to save that for last.
And then how long would you say this takes to cook in total? I remember you mentioning the recipe says 20 minutes, but you preferred 40 minutes. So it could be anywhere between 20 and 40 minutes, correct?
Yeah, that's just in terms of like the simmering time. So then you might also want to factor in the amount of time, like for those few minutes before when we were adding in the onion, the garlic, the seasonings, tomato paste, but right, like 20, 40 minutes or so.
Awesome, thanks. Could you add meat to this soup?
Sure, yeah, you can definitely add meat to it. This is that sounds like it'll make it even more protein rich. It could be a great way to have some animal protein and then have the majority plant protein. So I like the idea of, having the option of adding meat.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do you think that soaking the lentils overnight helps reduce simmering time, or are you not supposed to soak the red lentils because they're already split?
Yeah, so for these specific ones, if they're like, since like the red lentils have like the outer coating removed and they're already split, these already are going to cook pretty fast compared to other lentils. If you did soak them in advance, it could possibly make it take less time to cook. I haven't actually tried that, but that does sound like an interesting idea. But just it might make it already so much into like a mush. So I would just have to try that out, or you can try it out to see how it comes out.
I think I would recommend against it because the onion and the garlic need time to cook.
Mhm.
So I think that, you want the lentils to cook at the same time. Otherwise, if it reduces the simmering time, the onions and the garlic might not be fully cooked, but the lentils might be fully cooked.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point, Tamara. And also I would add on to that we really want the lentils to soak up the flavors of the other ingredients that we're adding in. So the more time we give it, then it really will get the other, all those other flavors that we put in. And, we want our food to taste good. So it might need that time to really absorb all of those, flavors that we're putting in.
I agree. What about some other vegetables you think we could add here? Maybe some like carrots, celery.
Yeah, exactly. You can add carrots. Actually, I did have a few days ago, I tasted carrots in a lentil soup, and the red lentil soup, I really like how the colors like blend together into like this beautiful orange. You could adding in celery is great. You can also consider adding in some zucchini as well, or other vegetables that you personally enjoy eating.
Yeah, maybe a handful of fresh spinach to add some green, or if you wanted to keep it with the orange theme, maybe some like butternut squash or sweet potato peeled and cubed. I feel like that would keep along with the same orange red theme.
Right, exactly.
These are great questions. If you have any other questions, please feel free to type them into the chat.
Great. Okay, so let's take a look on how we're doing with the soup. Okay, so as you can see here, the lentils definitely look a lot softer than they did when we had originally added them in, but the soup is still not like really thick yet. So that's where giving it some more time would be helpful. So we do have over here the 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice, which we'll be adding in afterwards. This is, again, the last thing that you're going to want to add in. And then if you want, you can add a little bit of salt and pepper to it to give it some extra flavor. So for the sake of time, I'm going to be adding this in now, and then you'll get to see what the final product looks like. So I'm going to be adding this in. We're going to mix this in. And then assuming that all of the soup had plenty of time to simmer, this is what the final product will look like. So I'm going to bring this a little bit closer up. Let me just move this. So let's compare the before and after. So again, this is what the lentils look like when they're just kind of like partially cooked. You could see it's still, the soup is pretty thin. It's not really so thick, and you could easily like separate the lentils from the broth. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. Okay, and here we have the lentil soup that had plenty of time to cook. And as you can see, this is a lot more thick than what I just showed you. So this is, you know, and you don't really see the individual lentils as much because the simmering time gave it plenty of time to blend in together. So this is basically what the final product looks like. Okay, I'll bring this up a little closer so you can see it. Okay.
Oh, that looks awesome, Bina. Yum.
Okay, and you can also see it from here. Okay.
Do you know by chance what type of pot you used or how big?
Yeah, so that's also a good point. When I was originally making the recipe, I used a pot that was a little bit too big. So I would say go for like a medium-sized pot. This recipe, it calls for like 6 cups of fluid. So whether you're using water or let's say broth, you'll want to have enough space for that, as well as the other ingredients. So you should be good with like a medium-sized soup pot or something like that.
Thanks. And then just for some people that joined us late, we have a few questions about using yellow lentils instead of red lentils in this recipe.
Yeah, sure. You can definitely try using other varieties of lentils. So if you prefer yellow, that can be an option as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Bina.
Sure. Okay, great. So as we're basically coming to a close for the recording, just to go over some points. If you do have any suggestions of what you would like for future cooking demo recipes, you are welcome to type that into the chat right now. If you have any ideas of what you would like to see demonstrated, how to prepare a healthy dish. If you want some time to think about it, you can also email us. So our email address is virtualsmartliving@aging.nyc.gov. And Tamara, if you don't mind putting that email and address into the chat, that would be great. So, you know, if you think about it and you decide that there's a particular recipe that you would love to see demonstrated, your feedback is always welcome. And then we will also, just for anyone who joined after our announcements at the beginning, I'm going to just mention our upcoming cooking demo, the recipes and dates for those. So as we said, our cooking demos are usually on the 3rd Wednesday of the month. at 11. And for the next 2 months, it's going to be on February 16th and March 16th. And the Zoom link, the passcode, the meeting ID, those are all the same as how you got in today. For February, the recipe is going to be Asian tofu stir fry. And that's going to be conducted in English again. And then in March, the recipe is Mediterranean hummus, and that will be conducted in Spanish. And then some other points. If you are interested in having an individual nutrition counseling session with a nutritionist, you are also welcome to reach out to us. We also do provide, the individual nutrition sessions. So let's say if you have any personal nutritional concerns, if you're looking to lower your cholesterol or better manage your high blood pressure or diabetes, or you need help losing or gaining weight, you are welcome to reach out to us and schedule a new individual nutrition appointment. So you can, again, using the same email address, you can send an email over to virtualsmartliving@aging.nyc.gov and just include your full name, your date of birth, and your phone number. So that's in terms of the individual counseling. And we will be ending the recording soon. So Tamara, if you don't mind displaying the banner just for a few moments as we're coming to a close of the recording. And I do also just want to give credit again to our sponsors. So this event has been brought to you by the ACL Grant Virtual Smart Living Initiative in partnership with the New York City Department for the Aging. So at this point, we're ready to end the recording.